President Biden is meeting his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin in Geneva later today, the first time as presidents. Many are asking, with US-Russia relations at a low point, will there be anything they can agree on? Russia recently included the US on its official list of unfriendly states, and both sides describe relations as at rock bottom. All this political tension pours over into business, with sanctions hindering meaningful trade. Commercial ties between these countries have also reached a low. Well, Philip Worman is Managing Director of GPW Group, a political risk consulting firm. Good morning to you, Philip. So,
good morning, Sally.
What do you think might be achieved here, if anything, by these two meeting today?
Well, I think the first victory is that the summit's actually taking place. The fact that we've moved on from the Trump carnival and the very poor relations between Obama and Putin, that a summit is taking place between these two very seasoned political veterans is a positive sign. There's not going to be a lot of common ground, and there's going to be a lot of talking about red lines and emphasizing their spheres of influence. But I think something constructive could come out of it. And
in terms of the constructive result, what does that look like? What can we hope for?
Well, I think on the big issues like cyber, for instance, the US has accused Russia of effectively shielding criminal groups. There's going to be a lot of talk about that. I think the two sides are very far apart. On Ukraine, each side will outline its red lines. So Russia is against the expansion of NATO, what it sees as Ukrainian meddling. The US is going to obviously make a big deal about Russia's military incursions into Ukraine. But there are selected areas where, if you like, there's safe ground. So perhaps something on vaccine diplomacy, perhaps something on counterterrorism in Afghanistan, perhaps even something in the Middle East on Iran would be very constructive, I think. So I don't expect huge results from this summit, but I think there are some areas of common ground, surprisingly.
When it comes to trying to change Russia, I mean, financial sanctions have been in place for quite some time since Crimea was annexed, and yet it seems to have borne no fruit. And what impact have those sanctions had, though, in terms of business collaboration? As we've mentioned, it's at a real low point, isn't it?
Yes, that's right, Sally. I mean, US-Russia trade is not the largest in the world. I mean, it has larger trading partners. Russia has larger trading partners, like Germany, for instance. And despite the sanctions, it's still possible to do business in Russia. I mean, for instance, bond investors, although they can't buy Russian sovereign bonds directly, they can still buy corporate bond issuances. And to be honest, on the sanction side, there really isn't a lot left to sanction without completely crippling Western business going into Russia. So it's a very delicate act for the US. They don't really have a lot of ammunition left on the sanction side, and it hasn't really changed Russian behavior, if we're completely honest.
But when it comes to doing business with Russia, who wants to? What are the opportunities?
Well, I mean, huge energy market. I mean, Germany is one of the biggest partners of Russia, and that's a very interesting point. If you look at the Nord Stream gas pipeline, which obviously our clients have always asked us over the last few years, is Nord Stream 2, this huge energy gas pipeline that's bringing gas from Russia to Europe, terminates near Germany. Is it going to be sanctioned? Because that would be a real game changer. And so far, the US has not, it's removed sanctions on Nord Stream. So I think in preparation for this summit, Biden's actually prepared the way by lifting some of the sanctions on Nord Stream 2, a very, very politically sensitive project for Russia. And I think that's helped lift the mood music slightly from appalling to not very good. So I think the mood music is pretty negative still for this summit, but I think let's look for some low-level successes coming out of this summit.
Well, we will be covering every twist and turn. Philip, thank you for your time this morning, very early for Philip Worman joining us from just outside of London.